Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. We've been talking about basically taking captive your mind and being in charge of how you think and not conforming to the world standard but being transformed. And I was thinking a lot about this, and I have been thinking a lot about this, and we've talked about a lot of different areas, but I want to introduce you to one today that maybe isn't as considered. And today's topic about how to take captive your thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. There's a passage that tells us that one of the things that needs to happen is you have to tear down some strongholds. The strongholds are something that has kind of taken you captive. The stronghold is something that you tend to not be able to get over or past. The stronghold is something that you've been harboring and holding on to with great vigor. The stronghold is something that is preventing you from progressing. And so we're told to tear down that stronghold, and we're told that we don't do that with worldly weapons, but with weapons that are spiritual, weapons that are powerful. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that means and how we can access and even apply that weaponry or that armor in our defense. And so I'm going to use Ephesians 6:12 that most of us are really comfortable for. Remember, when you were young and you were in Bible class, you probably drew or colored the guy with the armor, or you cut out all the armor and put it on the guy, and he had the breastplate and the belt and the shoes. And I want to look at it from a little bit different perspective, and I want to kind of talk about how vitally important it is that you prepare yourself to take captive every thought by donning the armor that God has given us. And so here's the first thing he says. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's scheme. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and against authorities, against powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist. Now, I've heard sermon after sermon about the belt of truth. It's the reason that it's around your waist is, and they went on and on and on. I'm not going to do that. What I want to do is I want to talk about the fact that the belt of truth is the thing. Truth is the thing that will hold everything together, right? Truth is so vitally important. I'm going to tell you something maybe you don't know. You believe a lot of lies. What do you mean, I believe a lot of lies? I mean, you believe a lot of lies. It happens all the time. In fact, it is oftentimes the lies you believe that wreck your peace, more so than the truth that exists. And so when he says the belt of truth, we're told, let God be true and every man a liar, right? And we tend to gravitate toward things that we like, and we hold on to it. The things that make it easier for us, things that make more sense to us. And sometimes the truth is messy. There's no doubt about that, but the truth is usually not as destructive. The truth is messy, but not as destructive as the lies. And I mean, I could start with the truths you believe about yourself, or the lies you believe about yourself. It's one of the big things that you struggle with. You look in the mirror and you believe things about yourself that simply aren't true. You believe things about your personality that aren't true. You believe things about how people interact with you that aren't true. That's part of it. But there's another level of truth, and I've talked about this time and time again, so I want to bring it back in. When it comes to who you are, and when it comes to what you are You are a product of the creation of the Most High God. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're not junk. And so you need to understand that that's one aspect of truth, but there's also truths you believe about other people. That person doesn't like me. How do you know that person doesn't like me? I can just tell. That person was talking bad about me. How do you know that person was talking bad about you? I heard. And this chaos happens as a result of lies, because the great deceptor, you remember, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in the heavenly places, and he is a liar. And he will twist and turn truth to destroy you. Oh, he'll use truth, but he'll twist it in the process. Okay, so let's go on, because that's just belt of truth. And I'm going to do one more because I don't think I can get through all this armor. The second thing he says is, with the breastplate of righteousness in place. And so righteousness is an interesting concept, because I think a lot of times we think of righteousness as an unattainable reality. And righteousness simply means being in rightness, right? It's very tied to truth, walking in truth, because you can't be righteous apart from truth. But when we talk about righteousness, it's about making the decisions that are right even when you don't want to. Righteousness is about holding on to the morality that God has called us to, the principles God has called us to, the beauty that God has called us to, attaining or seeking to be completely in line with the will of God. That's righteousness. And I think it's important. In fact, I dare suggest that if we spent as much time trying to put our lives in line with rightness as we do talking about how other people are out of line of rightness, it would change our lives. And so that's the one aspect of right, getting and doing what is right. There's another aspect of it that I think you need to understand, is the righteousness that you get isn't yours. The righteousness that we're talking about here is the beautiful thing that although you've sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, the righteousness we receive is because of the finished work of Christ Jesus. In other words, I think it's important for us to put on this breastplate of righteousness, and I think it's important for us to focus on doing what is right as often as we, as much as we possibly can. But here's the crazy thing. When we fail, or when we're accused of failing, we need to recognize that we serve a God who rescued us. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And righteousness that comes up on us is a direct result of the finished work of Christ Jesus and not your finished work. And so you are righteous, not because of things you have done, but because of what he has done. And therefore, the accuser doesn't get to tear you down by telling you what a rotten thing you are, or what a rotten person you are, because your righteousness comes from God and not from others. It also sets you free from worrying about or being concerned about whether or not that person thinks you're righteous, because God has declared your righteousness through the finished work of Christ Jesus. So walk that way, but be set free from the concern about whether or not somebody else sees that. I have so much more I'd like to say on all these subjects, but I'm out of time. So I'll finish this tomorrow. I think there's so much there. I think truth's important. Know the truth and it will set you free. The righteousness that comes from God is far greater than any righteousness you can produce, but it's also the righteousness from God that is upon you that causes you to live out in righteousness. So do that. Put on the full armor of God. Don't allow yourself to be sucked into the damaging effects of living your life outside of that. Anyway, I hope you have a great Thursday morning. Sorry I was a bit late this morning. I slept in because I was tired. But I wanted to go ahead and put it up. Normally when I sleep in that late, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to put it up. And then some of you don't watch it till after 8 anyway. So here is today's version of Coffee and the Word. I hope you have a great day.